Year for a multi-year lease of real property for the County of Hawaii Police Department. Authorizes the mayor to enter into a 5-year agreement with an option for an additional 5 years with the Ocean View Partners LLC to allow for the continued occupancy of office space located at 92-1329 Prince Kuhia Boulevard, Ocean View. Reference Communication 931, introduced by Ms. David by request.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Please a motion to approve Resolution 611-18.
moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Kanuha, seconded by Ms. Eoff.
My name is Kenneth Kiocho, and I'm the commander of the Ka'u district. And the lease is important for our public service to that area. There's quite a bit of calls that we get in the Ocean View area. In order to leave officers in that area so the response time is quicker, it's nice to have a substation over there, or what we call a substation. I understand there's no funding to actually build a substation, so we do what we can with what we have to work with. So this is vital to our service in that area, our response time, and we're working on infrastructure in that area to allow officers to actually stay there as opposed to traveling back to Naleo every time they have a case or a complaint or an arrest. So we'll be using the substation for small bench warrants, people that are able to bail out right away. We can process them and let them go. And if we have to have an extensive investigation, then we'll work out of the Naleo station. But that'll cut down on a lot of the time involved in traveling back and forth.
Thank you very much. I think that is such a great, although it's not an actual substation, or it is, the presence there is really needed. So I appreciate that. Councilmember, Mr. Richards.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for coming in to support this. I'm quite familiar with the district. Do you leave someone there all the time, or kind of in and out depending on what's going on?
We have people there all the time, not necessarily at the substation. They're on the road. They go there to make phone calls and do quick things. If we have a mobile device, a mobile terminal like a computer, laptop, if we have connection, they can go there and they can do some work out of there too. So I try to man that as much as possible. In fact, I even increased the minimum manpower strength for each watch to be able to facilitate that. So although they're not there all the time, they're around in the area and can respond to calls for service if necessary.
Mahalo for explaining what that space is used for. I think it's important to have that presence in that community to deal with a lot of the needs there and to respond as quickly as possible. So fully support this. Is the wish for the department to actually have that as a substation, or what is that where you want to be headed towards, or is it just because there's not enough funding for that?
I would love to have a substation, but I also understand that money is tight right now. So what we do is we work with what we have available to us, and that's something that is a worthwhile keep for a lease. It's worthwhile to invest in putting some infrastructure in there to allow officers to work out of there. It's very similar to what happened when I was a patrolman in Maunalani. Maunalani became kind of like that, and we even were looking at Waikoloa, I think, at one point, to have officers up in the Waikoloa area. We were looking at sharing something with fire, but of course that never went through for whatever reason. But to me, it's important to have the officers accessible to, one is to the people, and two is to cut down on the amount of time it takes them to get to a call. I mean, I feel for them because I've been a victim of crime myself and had to call an officer and waited and waited and waited, and it was frustrating. So if we can do things to eliminate that type of frustration, that's what we're looking at with keeping a facility like that.
Thank you for that, and thank you for explaining everything that you guys do in those areas, especially in Ka'u. Very rural, everything's spread apart pretty far. So mahalo, I support this.
Thank you. Ms. O'Hara, go ahead.
Yes, and thank you, officer, for being here. When you say infrastructure improvements, is this going to include internet connection for the buildings that
Yes,
don't
it is.
currently
It's a
have?
networking. That's what we're working on right now, is networking.
Excellent, because I know that area down there is a little remote and doesn't always have the best services, and you'll need that for uploading. I also understand from discussions with your chief that the difference between a substation and a mini station, a substation being an unmanned facility, whereas a mini station with at least one officer assigned, that's, at least as he explained the difference to me. And so maybe this is basically a substation, just even though no one is there on a permanent or regular basis.
Yeah, the concept of mini stations is more along the lines of community policing. It allows the officer to be stationed within the community and address community concerns, where a substation is actually it has an operational aspect to it where we work out of it. We can process people, like I said, with bench warrants, take minor complaints there, and the officers have an area to go to complete reports.
I totally support this. We could use more of this in my district of Puna. In fact, we're working on a resolution to bring forward for a similar kind of situation at Pohoiki, but given the turn of events in the last 2 weeks, I think we're going to have to reconsider the situation. Anyhow, I'd fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Hara. Anyone else? Oh, Ms. Leloy, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Captain, for being here. I fully support this. And the model. I understand the model that we have at Mauna Lani and how that turned into a substation. But I have a bigger question. Because this is a 5-year lease and we're going to be putting some revenues and resources into this facility, how is that going to pencil out over the course of the 5 years? I heard you mention internet. And I just want to understand how we're enhancing this place and penciling it out over this 5-year with the option for another 5. Do you have any?
So what we did was we began working with county. In fact, that was my major project. I've been in Ka'u for about a year, a little bit over a year. And when I got there, one of the major community concerns was the lack of police presence, number one, and number two was the response time of police officers, especially with critical incidents. And when I looked at the substation itself, I found that there wasn't any way for the officers to do work there. They have to constantly come back to Naleo. We tried using the MDTs that we have. The connectivity is not the greatest, and it's frustrating when you're doing a report and you drop connectivity and you start the report again. You might as well just drive back to the Naleo police station to do it. So I started working with our police county IT, who also began working with the county IT. And I didn't know this, but there's a grant that's available for infrastructure. So we were approved for one of those grants in March, and we already did a site visit on that. So now it's a matter of sending out bids for the equipment that we'll need to be able to put, computer terminals and have networking down there. How that would phase out over in a period of time, I don't know. But I know that having network there and having that building to work out of is going to be key to keeping our public service in that area. So I can't attest for what's going to happen in the future.
Thank you for sharing that, because one, response time, of course, is incredibly frustrating to victims. So I completely support this, but that multi-pronged approach about addressing the needs of the community in a responsible manner and the return on investment is what I really like about this project going forward, because then it becomes, something that the community can rely on going forward. And I think that does a lot to improving people's sense of safety, knowing that something is close by. So thank you very much. Thank you for bringing this forward. I yield.
Well, thank you, Captain, for being here and your patience for waiting for us to call this matter on the agenda. So that being said, all those in favor of approving Resolution 611-18, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We have 8 ayes and 1 excuse. Thank you very much.
Thank you.